Hello, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec podcast. As always, I'm your host, Aviv Ben-Yosef, consultant and advisor to tech executives worldwide, and the subject today is the problem with momentum. Or maybe I should be saying, when you need to be breaking momentum. Now, it just so happens that in the course of the last, month and a half, I've been approached by at least 6 different tech executives who were considering their path forward within their company. And I will note that only a single one of them is a client of mine, all right? I'm not making all of my clients quit. Now, they approached me, and they seemed to be stuck in a situation where they didn't know whether they should be staying or leaving. It seems to have been something that's been weighing on them for a while, and yet they haven't been able to make a decision, to commit to whether they want to stay or not. And I think that for most of them, a big part of it is the fact that the company is doing well. They have positive momentum. And it is a lot easier to give up when things are a complete disaster. But that was not the case for them. Yeah, things weren't perfect, but things overall, for the company at least, were pretty positive. And that made it extremely difficult for them to decide what should they be doing in their career. Should they be staying or not? Generally, I'm against too much broad advice. And I try to give you listeners some diagnostics whenever I give you some advice. But especially in cases like these, when we're talking about situations like these where your position might be somewhat different than other positions by things that might not be easy to see, I know that it is hard to provide general advice. So I'm not going to talk about should you be assessing the business model, your equity. I'm putting all of that aside. I'm really trying to focus on some aspect of this decision, which is an aspect I care a lot about. And it connects to what I've been talking about in all the past episodes, and that is the concept of we only get one shot in this universe. Life is short. And I quoted last week Benjamin Disraeli saying, life is too short to be little. And I'd like to give you some diagnostics that rely on that come from that point of view. So if you're thinking, should I be staying or not, here are some things that I want you to consider to maybe help you realize which way you should be going. Now, a few diagnostic questions. First, would you say, on average, that there are more days where you wake up energized and happy about starting the workday? Or on average, are you usually starting your days feeling dreadful of what's to come? Another good diagnostic, in my experience, is do you find it hard, or just you're not trying at all, to bring in a friend to your company? As in, would you now feel comfortable to talk to a friend and recommend that they join the company? If you don't, that is a major problem, especially as we all know, tech executives have to be talent magnets. And if you're not capable of attracting people you know, that's not going to work. Some people have it so severe that they even see that they're having problems selling the company to people they don't know, people who come in for interviews. And if you see that happening, that's usually a pretty strong signal. Another question for you is, can you remember the last time that you felt good about what is happening? You end a week, you call it a week, you go and have a nice weekend, and you have your weekend drink, and you're thinking back. Are you feeling happy about it, or are you feeling like, oh God, another one is down? Because again, life is too short to just go through the weeks, go through the motions to finish up what? It's never going to end, right? And lastly, I want to share here with you something I don't usually share because I save it for those specific cases where someone calls me with that sort of an issue. And this is sort of an exercise that I do. And I say this, and imagine that we're having coffee face to face, or maybe we're on Zoom, and I'm holding one of my fancy fountain pens in front of you, and I'm saying, imagine that this is a magic wand. And what this magic wand allows me to do is that if you tell me, I will now flick it, and tomorrow morning, you are no longer working at your company. No one is angry or disappointed with you. There is a magical replacement. Things are going to continue on track. Nothing's going to get delayed. And if you're worried about it, let's just say that you also have a nice job already signed and you're going to start in 2 weeks. No, this is quite a magic, right? It's not a Command Z because we're not canceling the fact that you were in that company. But it is allowing me to just cut you out of that company without any bad things happening. If it was possible to do that, if this magic wand I'm holding was in front of you, would you ask me to flick it or not? A lot of the people, even before I finish this question, already say, yeah. And for me, that's a good sign. But then they say, but you don't have this magic wand. I can't just leave that easily. And if that's what you're thinking right now, let me just say that, of course, we don't have this magic wand. But if you're saying yes to that ideal scenario, what I think is that you now know where you're headed. It might take you a month, it might take you 4 to build the company and to create a circumstance where you feel good enough about leaving without harming the company more than you absolutely have to. But if you realize that if you had this magic wand, you would have used it, then again, life is too short and you need to start making steps towards that scenario. You want to create a reality where you can leave. And I don't care about your excuses. This is, again, a few diagnostics that I'm using with people who approach me about this. And maybe I just gotten you to thinking. But I want to add 2 disclaimers before we wrap this up. If you're ending this and you're feeling, oh my God, I need to quit, that just might be the case. But again, if I were meeting you face to face and I knew your situation more and I knew you and I knew the company and everything, there are 2 other things that I might be suggesting. One of them is maybe you need support. A lot of people get burned out because it is lonely to be a tech executive in most companies, and you just get burned out because you have this weight on you of making more and more decisions, trying to solve things and make people happy, but you never feel like you're doing it good enough. And sometimes some external support can help you realize that you're doing things pretty good. You're just being too harsh on yourself, for example. So that's an option. And option 2 is, I feel obligated to mention it, even though I'm hoping it's not the case for you, is that you should be considering depression. When you're in a company that's doing well and you feel so bad day in, day out about yourself, it just might be that you have depression. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. You can look up online a list of symptoms to decide whether you should be talking to a professional. But in the past, I've noticed it and recommended to people to get professional help. And if that is you, and I know that a lot of people are suffering from this lately, either as a result of having COVID or simply because the pandemic has been haranguing our lives for so long. So consider that as well. But if you can rule out depression, and if you don't think that outside support or you have an external perspective and still you realize that this is not the place for you, life is too short. Get moving. Find your next role. I'm not saying you should be burning bridges, but you can start moving towards that goal. I'm hoping I've given you some food for thought. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions or comments, my email is always in the show notes. And also, if you haven't yet, do subscribe to my newsletter. It's the best newsletter online for tech executives, where every week I share this podcast, an article, 3 exclusive insights I don't share anywhere else, and for the past few weeks, also a 2-minute short video. So do check it out. Link is in the show notes as well. Thank you, and talk soon.